Welcome to Knowledge Cast, hosted by Jack Williams.
Well, you said that your joy, if you will, or you really enjoyed getting in front of a jury trial, and in your very first jury trial case, almost came about by default. It seemed like nobody wanted it in your firm. And tell us about how that happened and what a traumatic, complex, and monumental case that turned out to be.
Yeah, it was a really complicated case. I titled it "The Babysitters from Hell," and they truly were babysitters from hell because of what they had done and what they ultimately were convicted of. It was a case that there was a senior prosecutor in the office at the time, and I was a very young prosecutor, and I had just started probably a year or two prior to that. So this would be going back to like 1989, 1990. And the prosecutor was going to be out on maternity leave. And she had this case. She said, it's very complicated. And I said, look, I really just want to get in front of a jury. I feel like that's what I need to do. That's why I'm here. I want to try cases. And she said, this is a complicated case. There's two people that are the babysitters. They're the aunt and uncle tangentially of these young children. They're kind of distantly related. And they have a cousin who's developmentally disabled. He's got about an IQ of about a 70. And he would come over and they would all sexually abuse these children. And I said, it sounds like a complicated case, but I think I'm up for the challenge. And it turned out to be quite a challenge because I had to prep these young children to be witnesses in the case. They were the victims, and to testify about their quote unquote aunt and uncle and the cousin that would come over and sexually abuse them over a long period of time. It was a really gruesome case, really not pleasant at all. And I felt that having that relationship and developing that relationship with these young children and getting them to be able to come to court and testify truthfully against these defendants and to get them convicted was monumental. As happens in a lot of prosecution cases, you sometimes use one of the charged parties to cooperate, to testify, and that happened here. So we went to the cousin, we offered him a deal because he wasn't quite as involved as the aunt and uncle. He had not been involved in quite as many incidents. So we offered him a deal to testify against his cousins. And that turned into really a criminal law class because he gave a statement on tape where he said, yes, in fact, they had done it, gave specifics, details. Then when we put him in at trial to testify, he tried to recant his testimony and say, I never said that. It's not true. I lied. So then it became an issue of, well, is it true that he's lying on the stand, or is it true what he said on the tape? So it really became quite a challenging evidential issue. And ultimately, his statement did come in that was on tape, and the jury did accept that. And he ultimately was convicted himself, and he didn't have the deal that we had laid on the table for him. So all of them were sentenced. His sentence, I believe, was 10 years in New Jersey State Prison. And the two cousins, the husband and wife, they were sentenced to 20 years each.